and if they also thought it was legal. Rafadi also. But they camouflage those payments.
That's right, Madhu, but not on my law.
No, I understand. So, and that is nothing but money laundering. If I should find that those payments were made in order to commit an offense, which was a contravention of the RICA Act. Do you agree with me?
That's right, Madhu.
Okay.
Cape Town, a city known for its beauty, its culture, and its criminal underworld. For years, one name echoed in the darkest corners of the city's nightclubs. It's the security industry and inside police investigations, Nafiz Modack. Once a man who claimed he was cleaning up the city, now he's on trial facing over 120 charges, including the assassination of top cop Charl Kinnear. But who is Nafiz Modack really? And how did he come to control Cape Town's shadows? Nafiz Modack was born in 1981 in Cape Town. Not much is known about his early upbringing, but he has spoken openly about his personal life. Divorced father, he has a 15-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son who is autistic. Before stepping into notoriety, he worked as a vehicle repo agent and a self-styled private investigator. He said his income was around 20,000 Rand per month. On paper, he looked like any other security entrepreneur. But insiders claimed something else, that Modack was building an empire rooted not in protection, but in extortion, intimidation, and violence. Modack entered the Cape Town nightclub security world with aggression and ambition. Backed by his company Eagle Security and a team of ex-cops and muscle, he moved to wrest control of the city's nightlife from longtime underworld figures like Mark Liffman, Andre Nadi, and Jerome Donkey Buisen. This power grab sparked a violent turf war that saw club shootings, car bombings, and mass arrests. Modack claimed he was trying to bring order, but his rivals and police saw something darker. A man trying to become the new crime lord. The conflict wasn't just business, it was bloody. The center of it was control over Cape Town's lucrative nightclub security contracts. These weren't just bouncers and doormen. These were cash streams, drug routes, and gateways to protection rackets, extortion, and influence. One of the earliest signs of the war escalating came in 2017. When Modack and Buisen survived separate assassination attempts within days of each other. Buisen was shot multiple times outside the Spur at N1 City Mall, but he survived. Later, a grenade was thrown at Modack's home in Plattekloof. These bombings and shootings weren't isolated. A series of coordinated car bombings and assassination attempts rocked the Cape Flats, Greenpoint, and central Cape Town, aimed at rivals or their associates. Nightclub owners were threatened. Those who refused to switch their security providers from Liffman or Nadi to Modack's Eagle Security found their cars torched, clubs vandalized, or worse. Police at the time believed the security takeover was a smokescreen for a broader push to control drug distribution, particularly MDMA and cocaine. In elite clubs and events across the Western Cape, the same venues were often linked to money laundering schemes, with forged invoices, shell companies, and cash-only dealings. As the violence mounted, anti-gang unit began mapping what they called the new underworld order. On one side, the Liffman-Nadi Buisen alliance, deeply entrenched, politically connected. On the other, Modack, the disruptor, promising reform but allegedly bringing chaos. Cape Town's nightlife had become a battleground, and as bodies fell and fortunes shifted, it was clear this was no longer about security, it was about power. In September 2020, a senior detective in the anti-gang unit, LT called Charl Kinnear, was assassinated outside his home in Bishop Lavis. He had been investigating Modack for years and was close to exposing a massive network of corrupt cops, cell phone tracking, and underworld ties. Before the hit, Kinnear's phone was illegally pinged more than 2,100 times. Prosecutors alleged the tracking was orchestrated by Zane Killian, a former rugby player turned private investigator working for Modack. Killian was arrested, but the state claimed the order came from higher up. In the weeks leading up to his murder, Kinnear knew he was being watched. His colleagues would later testify that he expressed fear, not just for his life, but for his family's. He told his superiors a hit was coming, but no extra protection ever came. Kinnear had uncovered something big. He was investigating how high-ranking police officers were aiding criminal figures like Modack by leaking intel, manipulating surveillance systems, and using illegal cell phone pings. It was a conspiracy that stretched from the streets of the Cape Flats to the highest ranks of the SAPs. 2 days before the murder, Kinnear filed a report outlining how his phone was being illegally tracked. The method: a rogue tracking system called location-based services, misused by private individuals pretending to act as law enforcement. The man behind the pings, according to the state, was Charl Kinnear, who had no legal right to access that data. The day before the killing, Kinnear drove home late after meeting a confidential informant. He parked his unmarked government vehicle in front of his house, unaware that Kinnear had allegedly been tracking him in real time, according to prosecutors. His location had been updated mere hours before the hit. Friday, September 18, 2020. Just after 3 p.m., Charl Kinnear stepped out of his house and into his car. As he'd done countless times before, his 2 sons were inside the house. He was unarmed. As he shut the door, a lone gunman approached. Calm, precise. He fired 6 shots at point-blank range, hitting Kinnear multiple times. The detective died on the spot, slumped in his car seat, still holding his cell phone. Neighbors heard the gunfire but were too terrified to intervene. The shooter vanished. No witnesses, no shell casings, no fingerprints. It was a textbook professional hit, clean, silent, and devastating. In the aftermath, investigators followed the digital trail, and it led straight to Charl Kinnear. The former rugby player had pinged Kinnear's phone more than 2,100 times. The state claimed these tracking requests were paid for by Modack's criminal enterprise disguised as transactions to family members and shell companies. But the killing wasn't just about one detective. Prosecutors believed Kinnear was silenced for 2 reasons: to stop the investigations he was leading, and to send a message to anyone who dared to challenge the Cape Town underworld. Murder shocked the country. The anti-gang unit had lost one of its best. Kinnear had been closing in on the truth, but the truth got him killed. The assassination of Charl Kinnear wasn't just a murder. It was a declaration of war against South Africa's justice system, against police integrity, and against every honest cop trying to fight back, to expose just how deep the rot had gone. Just 6 months before Charl Kinnear was assassinated, another high-profile figure in Cape Town's criminal justice system came under fire. This time it was advocate William Booth, one of South Africa's most prominent criminal lawyers. The morning of the 9th of April 2020, Booth was standing outside his home in Higa Vale, one of Cape Town's most secure suburbs, when 2 men approached and opened fire. They shot 5 times, narrowly missing him. The attackers fled on foot, leaving behind spent bullet casings, and one chilling fact: this was a hit that had failed. Booth had long represented figures tied to Cape Town's underworld, including Mark Liffman, Jerome Buison, and others. But now, the state claimed he had become a target himself. The question was, why would Nafiz Modack want him dead? The state alleges that Booth had become a threat to Modack's interests. Investigators claimed that tensions between Booth and Modack had grown after Booth began representing Modack's underworld rivals, particularly those aligned with the Liffman-Nada-Buison bloc. More critically, Booth may have possessed sensitive knowledge about backdoor deals, corrupt cops, and a shadow network that linked nightclub security, fake companies, and political protection. If Booth talked, it could bring the empire down. In court, prosecutors revealed that the shooters were hired by a chain of intermediaries linked to Modack's associates. One of them, Amel Jantjies, had direct ties to both organized crime, figures, and corrupt members of SAPs. She allegedly coordinated logistics and transport for the attempted hit. Digital evidence played a key role. Cell phone metadata placed the shooters near Booth's home before and after the attempted murder. Surveillance footage corroborated their presence. Calls between Modack's associates spiked in the hours before the attack. Modack, however, denied all involvement. He told the court he had nothing to gain from Booth's death, and that he was being framed by corrupt cops who were loyal to his enemies. He claimed the evidence was circumstantial and politically motivated, but prosecutors believed otherwise. They said the Booth hit was part of a pattern, an escalating campaign of violence against anyone who stood in Modack's way. Lawyers, even former friends. The attempted murder of William Booth showed that the violence wasn't limited to the underworld. Now lawyers, cops, and even the judiciary were fair game. And in the middle of it all stood Nafiz Modack, claiming innocence while facing some of the most serious charges in South African criminal history. Nafiz Modack now stands trial for more than 120 charges, including the murder of Charl Kinnear, attempted murder of criminal lawyer William Booth, corruption and bribery of police officials, illegal surveillance and cell phone interception, kidnapping, extortion, firearms possession, fraud, and money laundering. One of the most serious charges is VAT fraud. Modack is accused of running up to 25 fake companies to siphon nearly 46 million rands from SARS, using ghost transactions and manipulated books. Modack isn't alone. His trial includes 14 co-accused, including Zane Killian, alleged pingman in the Kinnear hit, Miljan Tages, a gangland fixer, and alleged Agu Mole, Ashley Tabisher, a police officer accused of leaking, Kinnear's location, Jerome Buison, Mark Liffman, and Andre Naughty rivals, and sometimes alleged collaborators. In the underworld, allies today are enemies tomorrow. Naughty was assassinated in May 2025. Liffman was gunned down late, 2024. The vacuum left behind has only intensified the fight for Cape Town. Modack is also accused of buying illegal phone tracking data from a rogue ex-police officer named Goldblatt. He allegedly tracked not just Kinnear, but dozens of senior police generals, prosecutors, and rival gang bosses. Payments for these services were disguised as money for family members, funneled through shell companies like Empire. Investment cars. Prosecutors say the Modack brothers moved over 1.3 million rand per month, only to sell their company for a suspiciously low 100,000 rand. In court, Modack portrayed himself as a whistleblower, not a kingpin. He claimed police tried to frame him and that senior officers were working with his enemies. He pointed fingers at Jeremy Veery, Peter Jacobs, and more. But prosecutors weren't convinced. They grilled him on inconsistent affidavits, fabricated invoices, unexplained transactions, and missing phone data. Cross-examinations revealed that Modack's version of events changed repeatedly under pressure. In June 2025, Nafiz Modack was convicted of corruption for paying 146,000 rand to a police officer. But that's just the beginning. His murder trial continues. More verdicts are expected by late 2025. Behind the scenes, the gangs are shifting. Again, assassinations, power grabs, and dirty money continue to swirl around the vacuum Modack may leave behind. Cape Town's war for control isn't over. But as one kingpin faces the weight of justice, the city waits to see who will rise and who will fall. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more crime stories.